that it's possible that we may still have some people joining us. And so we'll just allow that transition to happen as it does. Welcome, everyone.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So awesome. Wow, I'm moved.
Yeah. This is such a blessing for Nancy and I to be doing this together and with all of you, this sort of maiden voyage of Soulfield. And we'd like to just begin just a tiny little introduction of what we're about here briefly and what we're going to do here today. So Nancy, do you want to start Rose?
Yeah. Lumenaria and I have known each other for over 20 years, I want to say, like very long time. And have definitely experienced magic together. And the thing that really surprises me is how both her and I have this Catholic upbringing, but also a lot of magic that happened in our upbringing, a lot of incredible experiences, angelic experiences, and so forth. And also that we both decided to go into the psychology realm and get our PhDs. It's like just, I don't know, the lives were so parallel until they're converging now, and we're deciding to unite. And it all started with me asking her to be in my podcast, and guidance was like, hold on. Do you want to tell the story, Lunar?
Sure. I'm going to back up just a smidge and then come to that. So Nancy was talking about these sort of similarities, and the other thing is that even though we both have PhDs in clinical psychology, we both really took our careers in a different direction. We both were really called to merge our spirituality and our mystical natures with what we understand and have learned. And so we really have been focused, both of us, in our own way, in our own practices, on consciousness evolution. And both have had like lifelong yearning to bring people together in sacred space, in reverent space. And so it feels like this is sort of a culmination in some way for both of us. And so coming back to us doing this, it truly was not our big idea. As Nancy said, Nancy had invited me to be interviewed on her podcast. Some of you may have seen that interview. And we tried to start, and the platform we were using didn't work. And then this next platform didn't work. And then we went back to another platform. 3 different platforms wouldn't work. And we kept cycling through them and they wouldn't work. And finally, we were like, okay, wait a minute, there's something happening here. And essentially what was happening is that Spirit was trying to get our attention. And there's something bigger. There's something more that I want you to understand. And so we had a very different sort of podcast experience than Nancy's traditional format. And then we just continued to listen, like, what is this? And we thought, oh, maybe we'll do this little thing together. And this little thing turned into this bigger thing and this bigger thing. And here we are. With Soulfield.
Yes.
Which hopefully this is the beginning of many of these kinds of gatherings, with more and more people finding their way into the field with us. And we really wanted to invite the people that we already have near and dear to our hearts to this gathering, because we're sort of like, we don't have the infrastructure yet, as we said in our email. We're just getting that stuff in place, but we have the spirit for it. So that's what we're doing here today.
Yeah. And what's so interesting is that I don't know if any of you really know what you're doing here or what we're going to do here, but you showed up, and that's what moves me so much. And in the beginning, we didn't know either. We were just listening and like, okay, this way, all right, this way. We were being totally guided. And something that I've experienced growing up was a little bit of an aversion to church, because just I remember going to church one time and thinking, no, you're interpreting that wrong. What are you doing? That's not what Jesus wanted you to think. Like I was just like, I was, of course, being a teenager, thinking I knew it all. But I was just understanding that there was so much more. And this is sort of like an effort to build something that is not a church, but it is gatherings, like bi-weekly gatherings where we can explore our spirituality at another level and create a sanctuary, create a space where you just enter and it's a total different dimension. And in one of our meditations, we were able to feel how we were sort of like the guardians of this beautiful paradise that we're all inviting you to be here with us today. So it's really beautiful to have you here.
So in terms of what to expect kind of on a pragmatic level over the next little less than an hour, hopefully we'll keep it on time. We're gearing towards that. Is that we're going to just take a minute to set the collective space together. There'll be a mini transmission, a mini teaching, and then we're going to enter into transformational meditation and play together in the soul field. And so this will be sort of our rough sketch. And we're going to begin with an opening prayer. And
with a little grounding. Let's do a little grounding first. I know that in the emails we suggested that you have a candle. The red candle is a protective candle, but it could be any color. So, so if you could please give us the honor to light your candles. Let's do it together or as a process. And join us. And so as we are lighting our candles, what we're doing is creating this space, the sacred space, for only the light and love to come in. And just take a second to release everything that you've been carrying of the week, of today, of the year. Just take a moment to be here grounded in this space that we're creating with our energies. Take a moment to settle your energies, to ground your feet, and to connect your head to your crown chakra, to the heavens, and open your heart and your mind to receive this energy that we are about to transmit for you.
In this space, we invite you to connect in your unique way. What is uniquely true for you spiritually? So this is not a space where we're going to dictate how and who you're connecting with and what you're linking to, but we want to invite you to find your unique pathway. And as you're finding your unique pathway in, really inviting you to invoke sacred support in the ways that are meaningful for you. Angels, guides, guardians, etc. Just calling in your sacred support. And we're going to begin with a prayer. And I've put it in the chat thread for you. If you'd like to click on that link, you can open the prayer and read along. You can download it for yourself at a later time, whatever feels good. But Nancy and I are going to read this prayer aloud now.
And I just wanted to give a little caveat. Lumenaria is going to read it in English and I'm going to read it in Spanish. There's resonance in the words in Spanish for the Spanish speakers here, but also for those that have that resonance within them.
Language is so tied to the development of our consciousness. And so when we begin our lives with a different language as central, often our emotions we feel our emotions in that language. It's just woven in this beautiful way. And it's also an expansion of consciousness when we hear a language that is not our native tongue. And so we're just inviting you, even if you're not understanding, to just receive the energy of the blessing. We come with grateful and reverent hearts to drink from the deep well of our eternal nature. We know as we dive into the soul field together, we are held within a sacred and holy embrace by the source of all love, light, and grace. We allow our minds to expand into the holy realms where magic and miracles are commonplace. As we minister to ourselves, we minister to one another and our family humanity. We recognize we are one in the holy wholeness. We allow all we do here today to ripple out through our lives as a living witness of divine grace for the benefit of all beings.
Venimos con corazones llenos de gratitud, reverentes y abiertos a saciar nuestra sed en el pozo profundo de nuestro ser eterno. Estamos conscientes de que al sumergirnos en el soul field, el campo del alma, somos acogidos en los santos brazos de la fuente sagrada de toda luz, amor y gracia infinita. Nos damos permiso de expandir nuestras mentes hacia el reino sagrado, donde la magia y los milagros ocurren constantemente. De la misma manera en que nos predicamos a nosotros mismos, así predicamos al prójimo y a nuestra familia humana, reconociendo que somos uno en la totalidad sagrada. Permitimos que todo lo que se haga aquí hoy tenga una secuela en nuestras vidas como testimonio vivo de la gracia divina para el beneficio de todos.
Yeah. So you might notice embedded in that prayer is also guidance for our living. And that the prayer is not simply an asking, but an affirming of what is so. And so this is so right now. We are now living this together. We'd like to speak to you a little bit today about using your higher wisdom, your light, your grace to support your own healing. And, woven into that a little conversation about how we sometimes can not tend and not look at certain aspects of ourselves. Some people might call this spiritual bypass. And we want to talk a little bit about that and about the distinction between what we're doing here and what that is. And so when we talk about any kind of hesitancy that we might have to see ourselves as we are, to see our shadow, to see the places of challenge, to see where we are maybe living less than the beauty that we know lives within us, that we know we are a part of. Sometimes we have a hesitancy to see that and look at that, and that's because of many things. And one of those things is a quality in our culture of spiritual striving. And spiritual striving comes from all kinds of places, but in various different religiosity, but also just in the kind of nature and fabric of how we have woven ourselves here, especially in this country, that there is somehow a fixed standard, and that if we are not achieving that fixed standard, we're not good. and this desire to be good, wanting to be good, and thinking somehow that if we're not good, that we won't be loved, we won't be accepted, we won't be worthy, we won't get into heaven, fill in the blank. You understand this that I'm speaking of. And this comes from a culture of separation. I mean, we truly live in a culture that suggests that we are somehow separate from that divine grace, that we somehow have to strive an effort to be worthy of that kind of connection. And part of what we want to help you realize, not just here today, but over time in the soul field, is that you actually are one with that source. You are not separate. But in those places where it's been woven into our fabric, even if we can grok that, we can get like intellectually, I'm not separate. That culture of separation, it's actually become like our primary defense mechanism as a species. And we see this in all kinds of ways that we cut parts of ourselves off. We only let certain parts be shown, ways that we cut other people off. There's a language that many of you might know, like there's this conversation about cancel culture, right? In this way that like, if somebody doesn't match my belief or my standard for how they should be, they don't deserve to be. If they don't believe the way I believe, they don't deserve to be. And this is not to say that we don't have the capacity and choice to be discerning. Of course, our job is to discern what is specifically for us. But there's a way that that energy, when we live in the culture of separation, has a judgmental quality. It has a cutting quality. And that becomes internal. We do that to ourselves, right? And it leads us to spiritual bypass. It leads us to a place where it's not safe for us to see our own challenges or our own shadow or the place where we're being invited to grow. We end up in spiritual bypass because we somehow believe that holiness with an H or a W means somehow being perfect, means always getting it right, means, needing to be infallible in some way. And therefore, we end up holding certain thoughts and emotions as like good, and other emotions and thoughts and feelings that are hard as bad. And as we label those things as the bad, we tend to want to avoid that. And especially if we're spiritual seekers, we want to live in the like, whoa. And Nancy and I are all for that. You have something to say about that, Nancy, please.
Yeah, no, I've seen a lot in my practice how people disconnect from their emotions because they categorize their emotions are bad, and they want to live in the spiritual world because it's disconnecting, it's dissociating, so spiritual bypassing, and how being in the intellectual world or in the spiritual world doesn't allow our emotions to come out, and so they're at bay. But what we are not understanding is that these emotions have information, and they're actually okay to be expressed and to be put out there. I'm not saying that people need to act on their emotions, just not be afraid or suppress them or put them away. There's a lot of gifts that come with it.
Yeah, and so when we want to really have a more complete and full experience of awakening all of who we are and embracing all of who we are, it's sort of, we have these like kind of basic requirements, and one of them is self-compassion. And self-compassion looks like a lot of things, but we could name a few. Like one is that it's welcoming, that we have a welcoming energy towards our own places of difficulty, our own emotional challenges, our own places where we, might go, ooh, I don't like how I spoke to that person, or I don't like how I handled that situation. That there's a welcoming where we go just like, what are you? Come, tell me more. Come be a part of me. Let's see what this is about. And that we also have an understanding, and Nancy spoke to this, both an understanding that those emotions, they have something for us, like they support our wholeness. And the language you'll hear Nancy and I use is our holy wholeness. And because they might be very well some of the very essence of what we're here to work with in this experience that we're having of body, meaning what we're here to in some way minister around or be a light to another for, etc. And we also are to have understanding that those ways are sometimes developed as adaptations to early life experiences. They might be inheritances that were adaptations that our ancestors made, and or cultural adaptations where we just learn a certain way of thinking. I was talking earlier about separation. That's a great example. To have a separatist mindset and a cutting and judging mindset, this is a cultural norm, right? So this is one of those ways that we've adapted to a cultural norm that needs our understanding and our compassion, right?
Yeah. And I wanted to add to that a personal experience. Many years ago, Lumenaria was pointing out to me, like, Nancy, you have some anger. And for those that know me, it's like, anger, Nancy, no, so zen, so happy, whatever. But it wasn't just overt anger. It was the passive anger, the self-deprecating anger, the perfectionist anger, the shame, all of that came with it. And what did I do? I intellectualized it and spiritually bypassed it. And so until I had an experience where I was witnessing how my anger, my passive anger, really hurt people around me. And it just makes me sad right now to remember that, because it was awful to see how that suppressed anger that I thought, like, oh, it's okay, it's in this box, it's not going to come out. It was biting people. It was really hurting people around me. But if I didn't open that box and really look at it and put it right in front of me and saw the damage that it was creating, I would really have not been able to deal with that. And so I think this conversation is about, it's an invitation, to bring. It could be anger, it could be shame, it could be sorrow, it could be so many different things.
Yeah. And so that self-compassion, the welcoming, the understanding, and another sort of foundational requirement for really being with those parts of ourselves in a way that actually becomes liberating and brings us into more wholeness is a connection with our higher self, with our higher wisdom, our light, with the source of all wisdom and light. And when we can both have self-compassion and bring in that connection, these are the ingredients that allow for radical and rapid transformation and transmutation, for us to come into greater wholeness, for us to see what is ours, to understand, know, do, be, become, etc.
Yeah. And to ask source, higher self, spirit, God, universe, nature, whatever you want to call the source of your love and light, to connect with you and to facilitate the connection, and the compassionate, unconditional love to shift this, and to integrate it in some way.
Yeah, when we were in preparation, you heard the song at the beginning, if you arrived, excuse me, earlier, a song that was chanting Om Mani Padme Hum, which is an invocation of Kuan Yin. And this is the energy, the embodiment in various different traditions of compassion. And there's this beautiful quote that I'd love to share connected to this from the Kuan Yin Oracle by Alana Fairchild. Some of you may know this oracle. This is: the divine grace is not suddenly having a valuable lesson taken away. right? So invoking grace doesn't take away what we need to grow and learn. It is instead the intervention of a compassionate, unconditionally loving divine intelligence that helps you realize you have learned what you can, and now it's time for you to be assisted out of the situation, to literally be lifted into a new vibrational experience. And this is part of what we're intending overall in the soul field, and in particular today.
Yes. So we would like to invite you to take a second and honor those emotions that are present for you. So, for example, I'm going to put it in the chat.
It's there.
Oh, you put it. Oh, she beat me to it. Oh, she's so good. So if you are experiencing shame, guilt, blame, unworthiness, it's number one. If you're experiencing anger, frustration, intolerance, or grief, sorrow, sadness, disappointment, unfulfillment. So tap inside it, or any other that may not be listed there. And so connect to that. You may have both the sadness and the anger, you may have all three. And just take a second to connect to the truth of that with compassion, no judgment, just to be witnessed, just to be seen. And if you wouldn't mind, raise your hand if what you are experiencing or what's in your field is a little bit of shame, guilt, blame, unworthiness. And then open your eyes and see your people.
Put yourself on the gallery view for a moment.
Yeah. See your people.
Look, see who else is with you there.
Yeah. And if you are experiencing anger, frustration, intolerance, see your people. And if you are experiencing grief, sorrow, sadness, disappointment, unfulfillment, see your people. Yeah. And we want to share a phenomenal tool to transmute some of this, but Lumenaria will tell you a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so I noticed some of you feel multiples of these things. And so for the purpose of working, if they're interconnected, like sometimes they are very interconnected and sometimes they're distinct things. So you can make a decision if you want to hold multiple kind of frequencies. These are kind of frequency categories. That's why we grouped them the way we did. Or if you want to pick one as we go into meditation together. So just take a minute and notice that. Beautiful. Joan says, I would love to add resentment to the list. Yes, absolutely. Probably falls in that category of anger, frustration, intolerance, right? And I actually realized, there's a whole category that's like probably like fear, terror, avoidance, like there might be a category like that. So, and there may be something else that's not here that's really primary for you. So just take a minute and go like, okay, I'm going to bring this into the meditation. And if you get there in the meditation and something else is with you, that's totally fine. So what I'm going to invite you to do now is go ahead and set down. If you were taking notes, if anything like that, take a little drink of water if you need a hydration. And then I'm going to invite you to drop your awareness inward. And we're going to play together in the soul field for a bit.
So cool.
before you close your eyes, I want to show you a tool that we're going to use. It's a mudra. And we're going to take maybe index and third finger of one hand. We don't do it right now, but I want you to see it and feel it. It's going to go underneath the lower lip right here. And this is touching an acupressure point connected to the conception vessel. Then the palm of the hand is actually going to cup the base of your skull. So sort of like cupping right where the skull and the neck join. We're going to hold this posture for a bit. And as we're holding it, if arms get tired, you can switch. There's no magic about which hand is in which position. And at some point, you'll feel complete with the mudra and you can just let your hands rest at that point. You can be the sort of like, and put that in funny quotes, since we're talking about judgment, you can be the judge of that. You can discern that for yourself. So let's go ahead. Let's let our eyes close. Let's let the awareness drop inward. And in this internal gaze, you begin to feel yourself dropping into the body more fully. Letting your awareness, your presence come back to you. And just for now, letting go of whatever that is that you are holding and bringing with you in the meditation. We're just going to set that aside for a minute. We'll pick it up in a bit. We are living and swimming embedded in fields of consciousness. And culturally, we tend to spend a lot of time in the mental field and some time in the physical field, the material field. We tend to spend some time in the emotional field. But it's rare that we really steep ourselves in the soul field. People who have meditation practice may do that, or spiritual community. Maybe there's a way in which you enter into the soul field when you're in nature. But what we're going to do together today is purposefully enter into that field of consciousness. And so because we don't spend our time there, as a rule, as a species, we're going to use that mudra that I showed you to sort of wake up that connection. So when you're ready, anchor that point underneath the lower lip at the chin and cupping at the base of the skull. And breathing here. The simplicity of intention to really activate and enter into the field of consciousness that we call the soul field. As you enter in, you might feel a vibrational shift. And to support yourself, you'll begin to, again, with the simplicity of intention, let the jaw soften. Let the mouth rest slightly open. Letting the fingers that are touching the chin relax and the hand that's basing the skull, cupping the skull, relax. Only having as much tension in these places as you actually need. Letting go of unnecessary holding. As the jaw softens, you can find your breath and your presence dropping down into the heart space. Down into the belly. At any point when you feel complete with the mudra, you can let it go. And if it's nourishing, keep it as long as it feels good. letting each breath be an invitation to expand into this present moment. At any point during the meditation, if you want support, you can take that mudra back up again, whatever feels good for you. Feeling an immense widening at your base, like your root chakra grows so wide to each side, in front of you, in all directions, spherically. You just feel that expansion at the root. And as the root expands, the pelvic floor begins to open, it begins to blossom. And you feel more fully the gravitational pull of our earth. And in that gravitational pull, you feel the truth that our beloved earth is embracing you. She's literally pulling you to her body. And you surrender into that embrace. As you do, you feel that there's a similar widening at the shoulders and at the crown. The upper centers start to blossom open. And you feel the beauty of your own light coming more fully alive, expanding as you vibrate in this resonant field that we're co-creating. Feel yourself plugging in to the central channel that runs from crown to root, linking yourself there, feeling the very center of your being. In this central channel, the frequency of our eternal nature lives vibrantly. There's an immense, profound, reverent stillness and silence there. And you begin to drink from that deep well of your eternal nature. And you allow yourself to be nourished, really drinking in all the support from the field, from your eternal nature. From the other beings here with you, connecting in their own way. And feeling this part of you that feels full and held and activated. Feeling this part of you now come to this part that you identified earlier, that may be in the shame, guilt, blame, unworthy frequency, or the anger, frustration, intolerance, resentment frequency, or the grief, sorrow, sadness, disappointment, unfulfilled frequency, or whatever else it is that you feel called to work with. And imagine that your energy can just pick that part up like it's this beautiful child of God, goddess, source, beautiful child of light. You just pick that part of you up with great care. And you lean into this part. like a parent with unconditional love would lean into their child. What's troubling you? And you just breathe and you allow this part to feel your sacred and holy presence with it. You allow this part to feel that you're holding its pain with it. And you might feel that your heart center warms, or the palms of your hands become activated with the love and grace that you're holding this precious part of you with. And begin to listen to this part, asking it, does it have anything it wants you to understand? Is there anything that it wants you to know? Really enter into a heart listening. It will be almost perhaps like psychic communication, this part to you, or it may be verbal or visual. You'll receive in whatever ways. It may feel visceral. You may feel something in the body, in the listening. And you breathe as you listen, and you keep allowing yourself to resource from the soul field as you hold this part that's in pain. Feeling that wide base at the root and the crown. Feeling the enormity of your divine love and eternal nature. Holding this peace with great care. And as the listening feels complete, feel yourself, that part of you, plugged into the soul field, reaching for the highest source of grace that's resonant for you. Perhaps Mother Nature herself, perhaps Christ, perhaps Kuan Yin, perhaps light. Reaching for that highest source of grace, opening to that, and feeling yourself pulling that grace to the part of your pain that you've been holding. It's like you're lifting that part of your grace up into a stream of grace and letting it be washed. Letting its vibration be changed by the grace. And you'll feel it most likely quite viscerally, the change in vibration as you're opening to and receiving the grace. Giving permission for your great spirit and the grace that's shining on you to truly transform whatever's ready. And giving this grace permission to continue that transformation, even as we begin to transition out of the formal meditation space. And so slowly, as you're ready, taking a very nice bit of time, you'll start to allow a transition. Before you come back to the screen, let your eyes just open. Look at your own hands. Maybe even place your hands at your heart. Feel a connection there. Let some deeper breaths support you in transitioning back to open eyes. Remembering that you're continuing to allow that grace to support you. While you're still in this energy strongly, remembering what you worked with and just raising your hand if you worked with the shame, guilt, blame, unworthy category, and finding the others who are with you there and just beaming the healing that you've just had back and forth, like feeling yourself look at that little Hollywood square and sending that energy. And then let that go. And anyone who was working with anger, frustration, intolerance, resentment, raise your hand. And feel yourselves just beaming the healing energy back and forth to one another. And then letting the hat go. And anyone who was working with grief, sorrow, sadness, disappointment, unfulfillment. And just feel yourself beaming that healing back and forth to one another. Here we are, healing ourselves, healing one another, being healed by the grace together. That's amplified in the field. Letting that go.
Can we do fear?
Absolutely. Fear. Who worked with fear? Thank you, Allison. Yes. And beaming that healing.
I would love to hear someone, if you would like to share your experience. I'd love to hear what you noticed, what came for you.
I can
Lacey.
share.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Lacey.
So like when you had us open and have the earth come up, it just felt like a big wrap around, like a big hug.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not alone, there's a community.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was like, I'm experiencing grief because I feel like I'm not worthy. Like the part that I was holding, the first thing it said was you are. That's not true.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for being willing to share your heart.
Allison, do you want to share?
laughter.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm in school.
And
There's so many faces here.
mm,
Well, I looked at all of these categories, and when I thought about it, it was actually fear, because it encompasses everything.
Mhm.
And when I was holding that fear with the divine light, I saw this like shriveled, dark colored, like a bean. And when the light came in and embraced it, I heard, "You are always being held."
mm, mm,
And then as the light continued, I saw it's like this being turned into a young baby.
mm,
I was holding this baby. Anyway, so I get, my reaction is to cry. So that's me.
yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Thank you. Mhm. Thank you. And one more person, Adana.
As soon as you said fear, Allison, and everyone was sending their energy, that was the one that I felt the most. I like immediately just like it filled my entire body and I just started crying.
Mm,
When we were accepting the light from, or the grace, when we were reaching for the grace, it was such an interesting feeling. It felt like I had like an esophagus in my chest, and like I could feel like my body swallowing the grace. Like it was like thirsty, like it couldn't get enough, you know, and I just
mm,
felt it enter my body and it felt so full. And yeah, I just like I mean, she's been distracting me this whole time, but nonetheless, I've been feeling like it's just been like so prevalent, the energy, everything. It's like, oh yeah, um,
Beautiful.
really beautiful. Yeah, I can feel all of you. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thank
Mhm.
you. Whew. And that's one of the things that Lumenaria and I were talking about. Are we going to be able to really transmit this energy through the Zoom lens, you know, and this presence? And I feel so honored that we've created this sacred space, this field of energy where we can be present for each other and be vulnerable and be here open and given to each other. Because this is not about Lumenaria and I imparting wisdom and all that. Is about showing up for each other. You showing up for us showing up for you, you showing up for each other. And we are, like the prayer said, as we are ministering to ourselves, we're ministering to each other. So yeah, part of that is sharing that love, whatever healing we have. Hey, I have a little extra, you want some, you know, or hey, I need a little bit more. So we give it to everybody else. This was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I know that we are on time. We have a few minutes left. Did you want to add something, Lumina?
Yeah, if anybody wants to, we don't have time for more shares, but if anybody wants to type anything in the chat thread that was significant or that they want to share, please do. And the other thing we'd like to invite you to share in the chat thread is if you have any particular like desires right now, either connected to what you just worked with or something else, if there's any particular prayers on your heart and that we can all see together, and with this energy of grace that we've amplified by coming together in this way, just allow that grace to shine upon those desires, those intentions, those prayers. And so We invite you to speak them in an affirmative way. Like an example would be, my heart that is grieving is becoming more whole and healing. My aunt is returned to vibrant health, like this. So if you're willing, if you have any particular prayers, to go ahead and type that in the chat thread, and or just hold it in your heart if it feels too vulnerable to type it. And we'll hold the space for those prayers together as we come to close.
It's beautiful. So as we are adjourning, there's a few things that we would love from you. And one is, for those that are not in our mailing list, just send us an email at the Soulfield Movement at Gmail, which the Soulfield Experience, sorry, at Gmail. Lumenaria posted it there. So if you are not on our mailing list, if you didn't get our emails, please put your name on the list so we can send you emails and updates. And then the other thing is, please join this Facebook group that we're creating. The Facebook group, I mean, not that we're fans of Facebook, but you know, it's a group. It's a way to reach people. So if you don't mind joining the Facebook group, you will be the first ones to join. You'll have seniority. So really exciting that you guys are going to be a part of that. And also, because this is our first time doing anything like this, we are gathering from the knowledge and experiences that we had. And we sometimes think it's going to look a certain way when it turns out something completely different. But we need your feedback. So if you don't mind, we're going to email you a feedback form to just know what you would like to see more of, what things you didn't think were necessary, what things like turned you off, and what things really helped you. So we want to create this for all of us to grow, and how we can support you even further. So so those three things. Did I cover everything, Maria?
Yeah, I think you got it.
Okay.
Yeah, and in the Facebook group, what we're hoping is that ultimately it can become a continuation of this, places where we share prayers, where we share awakening experiences, where we can allow our hearts to be held, where we can encourage one another, etc.
Yes.
I appreciate those of you who are putting your prayers into the chat thread. Thank you for doing that.
Beautiful. All right.
Yeah.
So we have a closing prayer. Are we ready for that, Luminary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can post the prayer in the chat, the English version.
Great.
And then I'll post the Spanish version. Okay.
So we'll hold all the prayers of our hearts here in this moment. Those that we know and those that we don't even know are there, those heart desires. We are deeply grateful to have experienced miraculous communion with our holy wholeness and the soul field. We wholeheartedly receive the upliftment of one another's communion and blessed soul light. As we close this formal gathering, we each, in our own way, will continue dwelling in the soul field and supporting our collective evolution. With deep gratitude, we thank one another and all our angels, guides, and guardians. Remembering as we minister to ourselves, we uplift one another. We encourage the magic we co-created to ripple out to all our relations for the benefit of all beings. And so it is.
So it is. Damos profundas gracias por esta experiencia milagrosa de comunión con nuestro ser sagrado aquí en el Soul Field, el campo del alma. De todo corazón recibimos la elevación de esta comunión y de la luz de nuestra alma bendita en cada uno de nosotros. Al culminar formalmente esta reunión, cada uno de nosotros, de manera particular, permaneceremos en el Soul Field, en el campo del alma, apoyando nuestra evolución colectiva. Con profunda gratitud, damos gracias a cada uno de nosotros y a nuestros ángeles, guías y guardianes de luz, recordando que al predicar a nosotros mismos, nos elevamos el uno al otro y alentamos la magia que acabamos de co-crear para que se expanda a todas nuestras relaciones para el beneficio de todos. Y así será. You will get an email, Allison, with the next meeting. We're aiming for every other week, but we'll see. Hopefully will happen.
We'll firm it up as we sit with it, but we're sort of orienting around maybe the first and third Wednesdays as our live gathering at this time. But we're gonna let you all know via email what's next when, but it will be soon. It won't be months off. It'll be weeks away.
Yes. Yes.
And for those of you who are joining us on the video after the recording, I really apologize for not acknowledging you verbally earlier, but we know you're here with us in the field. We're receiving your grace right now. You're receiving ours, and thank you for being here also. And thank you all that are here live for taking part of your day to plug in together and share in the ways that you did.
Yes. So as you move into your spaces in your life, let's make sure that this field stays sacred, and that what you're carrying as you're moving out of the soul field, that you're carrying with you the wisdom and the love and the light that you're sharing here. But also know that this space is always here for you if you ever want to return and come back and experience it. And so there are donuts and coffee in the back. No, just kidding. That's what they do at church, right? Yeah. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you so much.
Have a beautiful rest of your day. Blessings.
Nice seeing you. Thank you for your support. Thank you. Thank you. I love you. Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye, Dana. I love you.
This is amazing. You guys are amazing. I love you both.
Love you too,
I love
Donna.
you too, honey.
So glad you were here with us.
Yes.
I'm so incredibly excited about this. Like, yeah. Thank you. Love you guys.
I love you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dana.
I want to take a moment to, oh, there we go, to read the text, because I didn't read it all.
Yeah.
Do you wanna, I'm gonna stop recording.
Oh, yeah.